Oh, look who crawled back from the ashes. You. Yes, you. The one they wrote off as crazy, unstable, unhinged, broken beyond repair. The one whose breakdown became their favorite bedtime story, their cautionary tale, their proof that you were always one bad day away from losing it. Welcome back, or should I say, welcome to the revelation. Because anyone's still here, still watching, still breathing after what you just survived. You're not the person who fell apart. Music. You're the architect who demolished the old foundation so you could build an empire they'll never understand. Music. And that right there, that's the secret they'll never forgive you for knowing. Let's shatter some illusions real quick, shall we? Because this needs to be said out loud. Carved into stone, music, tattooed across the sky. They saw you break down. They watched you crumble. They witnessed the tears, the silence, the isolation, the days you couldn't get out of bed, the nights you couldn't sleep. Music, the moments where you looked like you'd completely lost the plot. And they celebrated. Oh, they celebrated quietly, carefully, with fake concern dripping from their messages. "Are you okay?" they asked while taking screenshots. "I'm worried about you," they whispered while updating their group chats. They watched your breakdown like it was primetime entertainment, the finale they'd been waiting for. Music. The confirmation that you were exactly what they always suspected. Weak, fragile, unable to handle the pressure, destined to self-destruct. But here's what they missed. Here's what their tiny little minds couldn't comprehend. Here's the plot twist that's about to rewrite every assumption they ever made about you. Your breakdown wasn't a breakdown. It was a controlled demolition. You weren't falling apart. You were falling into place. Music, every tear was strategic. Every moment of silence was calculated. Every day you disappeared from their radar. Music, you were rebuilding in a dimension they didn't have access to, couldn't monitor. Music. You were rebuilding in a dimension they didn't have access to, couldn't sabotage. While they were busy writing your eulogy, you were engineering your resurrection. While they were planning your funeral, you were designing your coronation. And now they're standing in the aftermath, staring at someone they don't recognize. Music. Someone who looks like you, but operates at a frequency that makes their ears bleed. See, they thought breakdowns were endings. Music collapses, surrenders, the white flag waving in defeat, because that's what breakdowns are for them. When they crack, they shatter permanently. When they fall, they stay music, down. When life hits them, they fold like cheap furniture. So naturally they assumed you were built the same way, wired with the same fragile circuitry, destined to blow the same fuses. But you knew something they'll spend their entire lives trying to figure out. You knew that sometimes you have to burn the whole forest down to see what's been hiding in the shadows. You knew that sometimes you have to destroy the version of yourself that everyone expects so you can become the version they'll never predict. You knew that breakdowns, real breakdowns, the kind that crack you open and spill your guts across the floor, those aren't endings, they're excavations. And excavate, you did, didn't you? Music, because you didn't just break down. You broke through the lies you'd been telling yourself. Music, through the people you'd been protecting, through the roles you'd been playing, through the masks you'd been wearing. through the expectations that were suffocating you, through the version of your life that looked perfect on the outside but felt like a prison on the inside. You dismantled it all piece by piece, relationship by relationship, belief by belief, until there was nothing left but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you actually are. And that terrified them. Oh, that terrified them more than your breakdown ever could, because a broken person they could pity, music could manage, they could control. But a person who broke themselves open on purpose, who weaponized their own pain, who turned their trauma into clarity, that's a threat they don't have a manual for. They watched you withdraw and thought you were hiding in shame, licking your wounds, too embarrassed to show your face. But you weren't hiding. You were studying. Studying them. Studying the patterns. Studying who showed up and who disappeared. Studying who sent superficial comfort and who actually checked in. Music. Studying who celebrated your suffering and who mourned your struggle. You were running the most brutal audit of your entire life. And honey, most of them failed spectacularly. They revealed themselves in your absence. Music. Their masks slipped when they thought you weren't watching. Their true intentions bled through their fake concern, and you took notes, mental notes, soul notes, the kind of notes that don't need paper because they're burned into your memory forever. You see, strategic breakdowns require one thing most people don't have: music, the ability to stay conscious while everything falls apart. Most people black out during their breakdowns. They dissociate. Music, they numb, they run, they cope, they medicate, they distract. But you, music, you stayed awake. You felt every single second of that pain. Music, you stayed awake, you felt every single second of that pain. Music, you sat in the fire and watched yourself burn. Not because you're masochistic, but because you knew that the only way to kill what was killing you was to let it burn completely. No half measures, no saving scraps of the old life, no clinging to people who were slowly poisoning you. Music. You torched it all and stood there fireproof, watching everyone panic because they realized you weren't asking for saving. Music. You were doing the saving yourself, and they weren't included in the rescue plan. Now, let's talk about what they saw versus what was actually happening, because music, this gap, this chasm, this grand canyon of misunderstanding is where your power lives. They saw isolation. Music, you were creating boundaries. They saw silence. You were conserving energy. They saw withdrawal. Music, you were strategically positioning. They saw tears. You were releasing toxins. Music, they saw breakdown. You were breaking through. They saw weakness. You were shedding dead weight. They saw chaos. You were reorganizing. They saw music ending. You were beginning. Every single thing they interpreted as your failure was actually your upgrade in progress. And the fact that they couldn't see it, couldn't recognize it, couldn't comprehend it, that just proves how far ahead of them you already were. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that's going to haunt them forever. You let them think they were right. You let them believe their narrative. You let them spread their rumors, update their theories, convince each other that you'd finally lost it. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't correct them. You didn't post clarifications or send paragraph texts explaining your side. You just disappeared into your breakdown like it was a cocoon, and while they were outside taking bets on whether you'd ever recover, You were inside completely rewiring your entire music existence. The caterpillar doesn't announce its transformation. It just emerges as a butterfly and makes everyone who doubted it look foolish. You did exactly that, except your wings are sharper, your flight is higher, and your destination is somewhere they'll never reach. They thought they were watching you crumble, but they were actually watching you shed. Shed the people who only loved the version of you that served them. Shed the environments that demanded you stay small. Shed the beliefs that kept you trapped. Shed the guilt that wasn't yours to carry. Shed the shame that was planted by people who couldn't handle your light. Shed the need for validation from people who were never going to give it. Shed the parts of yourself that were built to please others and suffocate you. Every tear was a release. Every sleepless night was a purge. Every moment of silence was a recalibration. Music. You weren't breaking, you were breaking free. And the chains you shattered, they're still lying on the ground where you left them. Rusting, useless, music. Evidence of a prison that no longer exists. Let's get into the traps, shall we? Because this is where it gets delicious. This is where your genius really shines. While they thought you were at your weakest, you were setting snares they didn't even know existed. You stopped arguing. Trap 1. Now they have no ammunition, no screenshots, no receipts of you being defensive or aggressive. Music. You stopped explaining yourself. Trapped 2. Now they look insane trying to justify their version of events without your participation. You stop showing up to places they expected you. Trap. Music. 3. Now they're obsessing over your absence instead of living their own lives. You stopped reacting to their provocations. Trap 4. Now they look desperate, pathetic, trying to get a response from someone who's moved. Music, music on. Every move you didn't make was a trap, and they walked into all of them willingly, eagerly, because they were so convinced you were broken that they didn't realize you were playing chess while they were still learning checkers. And the strategy of it all is truly masterful because you knew something fundamental about human nature that most people ignore. You knew that people will always reveal their true selves when they think you're powerless, when they think you're down, defeated, unable to fight back. That's when the masks come off. That's when the fake friends stop pretending. That's when the jealous ones celebrate. That's when the manipulators lose interest. Music. That's when the opportunists move on. That's when the truth emerges. Raw and ugly and undeniable. And you needed to see that truth. You needed to know exactly who you were dealing with. Music. So, you created the conditions for them to expose themselves. And they did spectacularly, enthusiastically, without a single shred of self-awareness. Music. You see, most people waste their breakdowns. They thrash around in the pain, make impulsive music decisions, burn bridges they'll regret, say things they can't take back, damage their reputation, sabotage their future. But not you. You weaponized yours. Music. You turned your lowest point into a laboratory. You used your pain as a filter, your struggle as a test. Music. Your absence as a mirror. And what did you discover? You discovered that half the people in your life were only there for the show. Music. You discovered that most of your relationships were transactional. You discovered that the ones who claimed to love you couldn't handle you when you weren't performing. You discovered that your success threatened more people than it inspired. You discovered that your authenticity made people uncomfortable. You discovered that the life you were living was designed to make everyone else comfortable at the expense of your soul. Now they're scrambling, aren't they? Now they're panicking. Now they're trying to backtrack, rewrite history, pretend they were always on your side, pretend they always believed in you, pretend they never doubted you. But you remember, oh, you remember, every single one of them. You remember who went silent when you needed support. You remember who spread rumors when you needed grace. You remember who laughed when you needed compassion. You remember who disappeared when you needed presence. You remember who weaponized your vulnerability when you needed protection. And that memory, that crystal clear memory of who showed their true colors during your darkest hour, that's your armor now. Music, impenetrable, unbreakable, forged in the fire they thought would consume you. Let's talk about what happens after a strategic breakdown. Music. Because this is where the real transformation becomes visible. This is where your power stops being potential, music, and starts being actual. You emerge different, not just healed, not just recovered, but fundamentally altered at a molecular level. Your tolerance for nonsense drops to zero. Your ability to detect lies becomes supernatural. Your boundaries become walls that nothing can scale. Your energy becomes precious, reserved only for people and projects that deserve it. Music. Your time becomes sacred, no longer wasted on people who don't value it. Your peace becomes non-negotiable. Music. Protected with a ferocity that scares people who are used to disturbing it. You become someone new, someone they don't recognize, someone they can't manipulate, someone music they can't predict, someone they can't control. And that drives them absolutely insane, doesn't it? Music, because they were counting on you staying broken, staying small, staying accessible, staying the same. They needed music, you to be the person they could always rely on to shrink so they could feel big. Music. They needed you to be the person who would always forgive so they could keep betraying. They needed you to be the person who would always explain so they could keep misunderstanding. They needed you to be the person who would always stay so they could keep misunderstanding. They needed you to be the person who would always stay so they could keep leaving. But you broke that cycle. You shattered that pattern. You refused to play that role. And now they're standing there holding scripts for a play you're no longer performing in, wondering why you won't read your lines, why you won't take your cues, why you won't react the way you used to. Here's what they're realizing now, slowly, painfully. Music in moments that wake them up at 3 in the morning, covered in cold sweat. They're realizing that your breakdown wasn't about them at all. Music. It was about you. About your evolution, about your liberation, about your refusal to continue living a lie just because the truth was uncomfortable. They're realizing that you didn't break because of them. You broke because you were ready to break free from everything that was holding you back, and unfortunately for them, they were part of that everything. Music. They're realizing that the person they thought they knew, the person they thought they could predict, the person they thought they had figured out, music, that person died in that breakdown. And the person who emerged from the ashes is playing a completely different game with completely different rules on a completely different level. And the traps keep working, don't they? Music, because you're not even trying anymore. And they're still caught. They check your social media looking for signs of struggle, but all they find is silence or strategic glimpses of a life they're no longer part of. Trap sprung. Music. They try to reach out with casual messages, testing if you're still accessible. But you either don't respond or respond so briefly that it's clear you've moved on. Trap rung. Music. They try to use mutual friends to get information about you, but those friends either don't know or won't music tell because they respect your privacy. Now, trap sprung. They try to recreate the dynamics you used to have, but you're not participating, not engaging, not giving them the satisfaction of your energy. Music, trap sprung. Every attempt they make to pull you back into the old patterns. Music just reinforces how far you've traveled, how much you've changed, how completely you've transformed. You know what the most beautiful part of this whole strategy is? The part that music makes it absolutely genius. The part that elevates it from survival tactic to masterpiece. You're not angry anymore. You're not bitter. You're not resentful. You're not seeking revenge. You're not trying to prove them wrong. You're not waiting for apologies. You're not hoping they'll finally understand. You've transcended all of that. You've moved so far past the need for their validation, their acknowledgement, their comprehension, that they've become irrelevant. They're ghosts in a house you no longer live in. They're echoes. Music in a canyon you've already crossed. They're memories in a chapter you've already closed. And that music, that indifference, that genuine lack of emotional investment in their opinion of you, that's the ultimate power move they never saw coming because they were expecting anger. They were prepared for anger. They could have handled anger. Anger would have meant they still mattered, still had impact, still occupied space, music in your mind. But indifference is the void where their significance used music to be. Indifference is the silence that screams louder than any words ever could. Indifference is the proof that you've healed so completely that they're not even a scar, just a story, just a lesson, just a stepping stone you used to get to where you are now. Music. And they can't fight indifference. They can't guilt trip indifference. They can't guilt trip indifference. They can't gaslight indifference. Indifference is the fortress they'll never breach. And you built it during that breakdown they thought was your destruction. Let's address the elephant in the room. The question they're all asking but too proud to say out loud. How did you, music, do it? How did you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How did you weaponize your own pain? How did you emerge stronger instead of shattered? How did you transform while they stayed the same? The answer is going to frustrate them because it's simple, brutally simple. So simple they'll refuse to believe it. You stopped fighting the breakdown and started using it. You stopped resisting the pain and started learning from it. Music, you stopped running from the truth and started facing it. You stopped protecting people who hurt you and started protecting yourself. You stopped trying to save relationships that were killing you and started saving yourself. You stopped performing strength and started building it. You stopped faking recovery and started actually healing. Music. You made a decision that most people are too scared to make. The decision to let everything fall apart so you could see what was worth putting back together. And you know what you discovered? Most of it wasn't. Most of the relationships weren't worth saving. Most of the beliefs weren't worth keeping. Most of the patterns weren't worth repeating. Most of the people weren't worth fighting for. Most of the versions of yourself you were trying to maintain weren't even you. They were costumes. They were performances. They were sacrifices you made to music, keep everyone else comfortable while you suffocated. And when you let it all burn, when you allowed the breakdown to do its work, music, you found something underneath all that rubble. You found yourself, the real you, the uncensored you, the unapologetic you, the you that music doesn't need permission or validation or approval to exist. And that you, that authentic core self that emerged from the breakdown, that's the you they're dealing with now. And they don't have a playbook for music. They don't have tactics that work on someone who's already been to the bottom and climbed back up. They don't have manipulation techniques, music that land on someone who's seen through every illusion. They don't have guilt trips that affect someone who's released all false obligations. They don't have fear tactics that scare someone who's already faced their worst nightmares. They don't have anything that works on you anymore. Music. And that realization, that slow dawning understanding that you're immune to their old tricks, that's what's keeping them up at night. That's what's making them question everything. That's what's making them realize they lost something they'll never get back. They lost access. Access to your energy, access to your attention, access to your emotional labor, access to your forgiveness, access to your tolerance, music, access to your space, access to your future. They lost it all during that breakdown. And they didn't even realize it was happening until it was too late. They thought you were falling apart when you were actually falling away from them. Creating distance, building walls, changing locks, burning bridges, severing ties, cutting cords. Music, every day you spent in that breakdown was a day you spent extracting yourself from their grip. Music, and by the time they realized what was happening, you were already gone, already unreachable, already operating in a reality they have no access to. Awareness is where everything begins and where most people are afraid to go. Because awareness is not just seeing what's happening around you. It's seeing what's happening inside you. And that's a place many avoid. It's easier to blame the world, to point fingers, to say, they made me feel this way. But the moment you become aware, excuses start to collapse. Think about it. Mind games only work in the dark. They rely on confusion. They feed on emotional reactions. They grow stronger when you don't question them. The moment you bring awareness into the situation, it's like turning on a light in a room full of illusions. Suddenly, what looked powerful looks weak. What felt overwhelming becomes predictable. At first, awareness feels uncomfortable because you start noticing things you ignored before. You realize how certain words trigger you. You see how quickly your mood shifts based on someone else's tone, their approval, their rejection. And that realization can sting. You begin to understand that not every feeling you have is truly yours. Some were planted, shaped by past experiences, by people who knew exactly which buttons to press. You weren't weak, you were conditioned. But here's the turning point. Awareness doesn't trap you in that truth. It frees you from it. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize the trigger, it loses its surprise. Once you understand the game, you stop reacting like a puppet. Imagine someone throws negativity at you. Before awareness, you absorb it instantly. It hits you and you feel anger, frustration, maybe even self-doubt. You react without thinking, and just like that, They've controlled your state of mind. But with awareness, something different happens. There's a pause. A small, powerful gap between what happens and how you respond. In that gap you observe, you ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Is this reaction helping me or hurting me? Is this even true or just noise? That pause is your power, because in that moment you're no longer being controlled. You're choosing. Awareness teaches you to separate facts from interpretations. Someone's words are just words until your mind gives them meaning. And most of the time, the meaning you give is shaped by old wounds, old fears, old insecurities. But when you're aware of that, you stop blindly believing every thought that crosses your mind. You start challenging them. That voice in your head that says, you're not good enough. Where did it come from? Who put it there? And more importantly, why are you still listening to it? Awareness turns your mind from a battlefield into a control room. Instead of fighting every negative thought, you start observing them. You watch them come and go like passing clouds, and you realize something powerful. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And once you understand that everything shifts because now negativity loses its authority, it becomes just another signal, not a command. It can knock on your door, but it doesn't get to walk in and take over. Awareness also exposes the intentions of others. When someone tries to manipulate you, they're counting on your reaction. They want you to feel insecure, angry, or defensive. That reaction gives them control, but when you're aware, you start seeing beyond their words. You notice their tone, their timing, their patterns. You realize that their behavior says more about them than it does about you, and instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically, or sometimes you don't respond at all. Silence, when chosen consciously, is one of the most powerful responses because it shows that you're not playing their game. Awareness also forces you to take responsibility, and that's where real power lies. Not responsibility for what others do, but responsibility for how you process it. You stop saying they made me feel this way and start saying this is how I responded and I can change that. That shift is everything, because if others control how you feel, then your peace is always at risk. But if you control your response, your peace becomes untouchable. Of course, awareness doesn't mean you suddenly become emotionless. You will still feel anger. You will still feel pain. You will still face moments of doubt. But the difference is those feelings no longer control you. You feel them without becoming them. You acknowledge them without letting them define your actions. That's mastery. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Awareness is a skill. It's not something you switch on overnight. It's something you build moment by moment. Every time you pause instead of reacting. Every time you question a negative thought. Every time you choose understanding over impulsa, you're strengthening that skill. At first, you'll forget. You'll get pulled back into old patterns. You'll react before you think. You'll feel like nothing has changed. But even then, awareness is working, because now after the reaction, you notice it, you reflect, you learn, you adjust. And slowly that awareness starts showing up earlier and earlier until one day it shows up before the reaction itself. That's when you know you've changed, because now you're not just aware after the fact. You're aware in the moment, and that's where control lives. So when they try to play mind games, when negativity tries to creep into them, when your own thoughts try to turn against you, you don't panic. You observe. You understand, and then you decide, because awareness is not just about seeing the truth. It's about choosing what you do with it. And once you truly understand that, no game can control you, no negativity can own you, because the moment you see clearly, you become dangerous in a way they can't predict. Not because you fight harder, but because you're no longer blind. There's a voice in your head that never goes silent. It speaks when you wake up. It follows you through the day. It whispers when everything is quiet at night. Most people think that voice is them. But that's the first illusion, because that voice can be programmed, shaped, influenced. And if you don't take control of it, someone else will. Think about where it came from. Every criticism you heard growing up, every moment someone doubted you, every failure that left a scar, they didn't just disappear. They became part of that voice. So when it says you can't do this, it might not even be your belief. It might be an echo, a leftover imprint from someone who never understood your potential, and yet you listen to it like it's the truth. That's how the game is played, not by controlling your actions directly, but by controlling your actions directly, but by controlling the voice that decides your actions. Because if they can make you doubt yourself, you'll hesitate. If they can make you feel small, you'll play small. If they can make you believe you're not enough, you'll never even try to become more. And the most dangerous part, it feels natural. It feels like it's just who you are, but it's not. It's conditioning. And the moment you realize that, you start to take your power back. Controlling your inner voice doesn't mean silencing it. That's impossible. The voice will always be there. The real power comes from changing your relationship with it. Instead of blindly obeying it, you start questioning it. When it says you're going to fail, you ask, based on what? When it says you're not good enough, you respond, says who? When it says don't try, you'll embarrass yourself. You challenge it, or maybe I'll grow. You stop treating every thought like a command and start treating it like a suggestion. That shift is subtle, but it changes everything, because now you're no longer being dragged by your thoughts. You're evaluating them. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. Your inner voice is constantly presenting arguments. Some are logical, some are emotional, some are completely distorted. Before you accepted every argument without question, now you become the judge. You listen, but you don't automatically agree. You look for evidence. You question assumptions. You reject what doesn't serve you. And slowly that voice begins to change, because here's the truth most people ignore. The inner voice adapts to how you respond to it. If you let it bully you, it becomes harsher. If you ignore it completely, it becomes louder. But if you challenge it with awareness and intention, it clears throat, starts to evolve. It starts to align with the direction you choose. At first it will resist. It will go back to old patterns. It will repeat the same negative lines. It will try to pull you into familiar emotional reactions, because that's what it knows. But you stay consistent. You correct it. You redirect it. You replace destructive thoughts with intentional ones. Not fake positivity, not empty affirmations, but grounded, controlled thinking. Instead of I'm a failure, you say I'm learning. Instead of I can't handle this, you say I'll figure it out. Instead of everything is going wrong, you say this is temporary. These aren't just words, they're instructions. And your mind follows the instructions. You repeat the most. That's how you reprogram the voice. Not by force, but by repetition and control. And over time, something powerful happens. The voice that once held you back starts pushing you forward. The same mind that created doubt starts creating clarity. The same voice that once whispered fear begins to speak confidence. But it doesn't stop there. Controlling your inner voice also means knowing when not to engage with it. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts are just noise, random fears, old memories, imagined worst-case scenarios. If you chase every one of them, you'll exhaust yourself. So you learn to let them pass. You observe them without reacting. You acknowledge them without attaching to them. It's like standing in the middle of a storm, but refusing to be carried away by the wind. You remain still while everything else moves. That's control. And when negative feelings rise, and they will, you don't let the voice turn them into something bigger. You don't let one bad moment become my whole life is a mess. You don't let one mistake become I'm worthless. You don't let temporary pain become a permanent identity, because now you see what the voice is trying to do. It's trying to generalize, to exaggerate, to protect you in the wrong way. And instead of falling for it, you bring it back to reality. You keep it grounded. You remind yourself of what's real, not just what feels intense. That's how you overcome negative feelings. Not by eliminating them, but by refusing to let your inner voice distort them. Because feelings come and go, but the story your mind tells about those feelings is what keeps them alive. Change the story and you change the experience. And here's where it all comes together. When you truly control your inner voice, you become unpredictable to anyone trying to manipulate you. They expect you to react emotionally, but you don't. They expect you to doubt yourself, but you question the doubt. They expect you to break under pressure, but your mind stays steady because the control they were trying to gain from the outside you've already secured on the inside. Now your confidence doesn't depend on praise. Your peace doesn't depend on circumstances. Your decisions don't depend on fear. They come from a place of control, a place where your thoughts serve you instead of sabotage you. And once you reach that point, the voice in your head is no longer your enemy. It becomes your ally. Sharp, focused, disciplined. It still speaks, but now it speaks with purpose. Not to limit you, but to guide you. Not to weaken you, but to strengthen you. And the world can try whatever it wants. But when your inner voice is under your control, there's nothing left for them to manipulate. Pain has a reputation. People run from it, hide from it, numb it, pretend it doesn't exist. Because pain feels like weakness, like something that slows you down, breaks your focus, makes you vulnerable. But that's only true if you leave it unexamined. Unquestioned pain becomes suffering. Ignored pain becomes poison. But understood pain becomes power. The difference is what you do with it. Every painful moment carries information, not just emotion information. It tells you where something mattered. It shows you where expectations collided with reality. It exposes the gaps between what you thought would happen and what actually did. Most people stop at the feeling. They say fat hurt and walk away, or worse, they carry it like a weight that defines them. But if you go one step deeper, you start to see the pattern. You ask, why did this hurt? Not on the surface, but underneath it. Was it rejection? Was it betrayal? Was it failure? And then you go even deeper. What belief did that pain touch? Because pain isn't just about what happened, it's about what it meant to you. Two people can go through the same situation. One breaks, the other adapts. The difference isn't the event, it's the interpretation. That's where strategy begins. You stop treating pain like a random attack and start treating it like data. Cold, clear, useful. Let's say someone disrespects you. The immediate reaction is emotional, anger, frustration, maybe even self-doubt. But if you stay there, you lose control. Instead, you step back and analyze. What exactly triggered this reaction? Was it their words or what those words implied? Did it hit an insecurity or challenge a boundary? Now you're no longer just feeling pain, you're studying it. And in that study, you uncover something valuable. Maybe you realize your boundaries aren't clear. Maybe you see that you're seeking validation where you shouldn't. Maybe you understand that their behavior reflects their own limitations, not your worth. That realization is strategy. Because now the next time it happens, you're not surprised, you're prepared. Pain becomes a lesson you've already learned, not a trap you fall into. Again, the same applies to failure. Failure hurts not just because of the outcome, but because of what it says to your mind. You're not capable, you're not ready, you're not enough. But those are interpretations, not facts. When you turn pain into strategy, you strip those interpretations away and focus on reality. What went wrong? What was missing? What can be improved? You become precise. Instead of saying, I failed, you say, this approach didn't work because of this, this, and this. Now pain is no longer emotional chaos. It's structured feedback. And feedback can be used. This is where most people fall behind. They feel pain, but they don't process it, so it repeats. Different situation, same result. Different people, same pattern, because the lesson was never extracted. But when you start using pain strategically, repetition turns into refinement. Each mistake sharpens you. Each setback adjusts your direction. Each one teaches you where to guard and where to grow. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift alone changes everything, because now nothing is wasted. Not the betrayal, not the rejection, not the disappointment. All of it becomes material, raw input that you shape into something stronger. And here's the part that most people overlook. Turning pain into strategy doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You still feel. You still experience the full weight of what happens. But instead of drowning in it, you use it. You allow yourself to feel the pain fully without letting it control your actions. That's discipline, because it's easy to react when you're hurt. It's easy to lash out, shut down, or give up. But strategy requires patience. It requires you to sit with the discomfort long enough to understand it, to separate the emotion from the lesson. Clears throat. And once you do that, the pain starts to lose its sting. Not because it didn't matter, but because it's already been used. It's already been transformed. Think of it like this. Pain is raw energy. If you don't direct it, it burns you. If you channel it, it fuels you. The same pain that could destroy your confidence can build your resilience. The same rejection that could make you quit can push you to improve. The same disappointment that could make you bitter can make you sharper. It all depends on what you do with it. And over time, something changes inside you. You stop fearing pain. Not because you enjoy it, but because you understand it. You know that no matter what happens, there's something to extract from it, something to learn, something to adjust, something to strengthen. That confidence is different. It's not based on everything going right, it's based on knowing you can handle things when they go wrong. That's real power. Because now when life hits you, and it will, you don't collapse. You observe, you process, you adapt, you turn the experience into an advantage. And the people who once thought pain would break you start to realize something unsettling. Every time they tried to hurt you, they made you harder to defeat. Every setback became a setup. Every loss became a lesson. Every wound became wisdom. And now you're not just surviving challenges, you're using them, refining yourself with every impact, becoming more precisely, more aware, more controlled. That's what it means to turn pain into strategy. It's not about avoiding the damage. It's about making sure that nothing hits you without leaving something valuable behind. Because in the end, a pain is inevitable. But staying broken by it, that's a choice. And you've learned how to choose differently. Most people don't realize how much of their life is being controlled not by force, not by rules, but by invisible strings. A look, a comment, a reaction, a moment of approval or rejection, and suddenly their mood shifts. Their confidence rises or falls, their decisions bend. That's external control. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need permission. It quietly takes over the moment your internal state depends on something outside of you. If someone praises you, you feel powerful. If they criticize you, you shrink. If they ignore you, you question your worth. And without realizing it, you've handed over control because now your emotions are no longer yours. They're responses triggered by others. Detaching from external control isn't about becoming cold or disconnected from the world. It's about breaking that dependency. It's about realizing that just because something happens outside of you doesn't mean it gets to decide what happens inside of you. But this is where it gets uncomfortable because you start to notice how often you've been seeking validation. You notice how a simple good job can lift your entire day and how the absence of it can make you feel invisible. You notice how criticism lingers in your mind longer than it should, replaying itself, shaping your thoughts, making you question yourself. And you start to ask a dangerous question. Why do I give this so much power? That question changes everything. Because the answer is rarely about the moment itself. It goes deeper. It's about wanting to be accepted, to be respected, to be seen. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when those needs turn into dependency, that's when control slips away. Because now you don't just appreciate validation, you require it. And anyone who can give it can also take it away. That's the trap. Detachment begins the moment you understand that your value doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's opinion. Someone can misunderstand you and you're still valid. Someone can doubt you and you're still capable. Someone can reject you and you're still worthy. But your mind doesn't accept that easily. It's been trained to react, to interpret every external signal as something personal. A delayed reply becomes disrespect. A critical comment becomes a personal attack. A failure becomes an identity. So you start working backwards. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause. You ask yourself, is this actually about me? Or is it about them? Am I responding to reality or to my interpretation of it? Why does this matter so much right now? That pause creates distance. And in that distance, control returns, because now you're no longer reacting out of habit. You're choosing your response. Detachment also means letting go of the need to control how others see you. That's one of the heaviest burdens people carry, trying to manage perceptions, trying to avoid judgment, trying to be liked by everyone. But clears throat. No matter how much you adjust yourself, someone will misunderstand you, someone will disagree, someone will judge. That's not failure, that's reality. And once you accept that, you stop performing for approval. You stop shaping your actions based on how they'll be perceived and start aligning them with who you actually are. That's freedom, because now your actions come from intention, not insecurity. You say what needs to be said without overthinking every reaction. You make decisions based on clarity, not fear of judgment. You move forward without waiting for permission. And something interesting happens. The less you chase approval, the less control others have over you. Their praise becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Their criticism becomes information, not a verdict. Their opinions become perspectives, not definitions. You start seeing people differently too. You realize that everyone is operating from their own experiences, their own fears, their own biases. So when someone reacts negatively, it's not always about you. It's their lens, their story, their internal state. And once you see that clearly, you stop absorbing everything so personally. That doesn't mean you ignore feedback. It means you filter it. You take what's useful and leave what isn't. You don't let one person's opinion override your entire sense of self, because you've built something stronger inside. Detachment also applies to outcomes. Sometimes external control isn't about people. It's about results. You tie your emotions to success. And when things don't go your way, everything collapses. But when you detach, you focus on the process. You give your best effort without letting the outcome define your worth. If it works, you learn. If it doesn't, you still learn. Either way, you move forward. That mindset makes you stable, unshaken by temporary highs or lows. Because your foundation isn't built on external results. It's built on internal consistency. And here's where detachment becomes powerful. You become harder to manipulate because manipulation relies on emotional hooks. If someone knows what triggers you, they can control you. But when you've detached, those hooks don't land the same way. You don't react instantly. You don't give away your emotional state so easily. You don't let others dictate your direction. You observe first, you understand, and then you decide. That makes you unpredictable in the best way, because your actions aren't driven by pressure, they're driven by clarity. And over time, this changes how you move through the world. You become calmer, not because life is easier, but because you're no longer pulled in every direction. You become focused because your energy isn't scattered across trying to please everyone. You become confident, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you no longer need them to. That's real detachment, not isolation, not indifference, but independence. The ability to stay connected to the world without being controlled by it. And once you reach that point, external noise loses its power. Opinions stop shaking you. Situations stop defining you. Reactions stop controlling you, because everything that used to pull you apart now passes through you without leaving a mark. You still see it, you still hear it, you still understand it, but you don't become it. And that's the moment you realize the control was never outside. You just had to take it back. Chaos isn't the exception. It's clear's throat, the rule. Life doesn't move in straight lines. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't organize itself around your plans, your expectations, or your comfort. Things shift without warning. People change without explanation. Situations collapse just when you thought they were stable. And most people spend their lives trying to avoid that. They chase certainty. They build routines hoping nothing breaks them. They hold on tightly to control because the unknown feels like a threat. But here's the truth they don't want to face. The more you resist chaos, the more fragile you become. Because the moment something unexpected happens, and it will, you're thrown off balance. Your emotions spike. Your thoughts scatter. Your decisions become reactive. Not because chaos is powerful, but because you never learned how to stand in it. Embracing chaos doesn't mean you enjoy disorder. It means you stop expecting life to be predictable. It means you stop depending life to be predictable. It means you stop demanding that everything goes your way before you feel stable. Instead, you build something stronger. You build yourself. Because if you can't control the environment, the only thing left to master is your response to it. That's where real power is. Imagine two people facing the same situation. Everything falling apart around them. One panics, the other adjusts. Same chaos, different outcome. The difference isn't luck, it's internal control. When you embrace chaos, you stop seeing it as a disruption and, clears throat, start seeing it as a test. Not a test of strength alone, but a test of awareness, discipline, and adaptability. Because chaos exposes everything. It reveals your weak points. It magnifies your habits. It forces your true mindset to the surface. If your thoughts are scattered, chaos amplifies that. If your emotions are unstable, chaos intensifies them. If your decisions are impulsive, chaos makes them reckless. But if you train yourself, chaos becomes an advantage. Because while others are overwhelmed, you're observing. While others are reacting, you're calculating. While others are losing control, you're gaining clarity. That's what it means to master yourself. It's not about controlling what happens. It's about controlling what happens within you. When everything outside is unpredictable, that starts with your thoughts. In chaotic moments, your mind will try to rush ahead. It will jump to worst-case scenarios. It will create stories that aren't even real yet. This is going to fail. Everything is falling apart. There's no way out of this. If you believe those thoughts, instantly you lose. Not because they're true, but because they shape your actions, so you slow it down. Clears throat. You bring your focus back to the present. What is actually happening right now? What can I control in this moment? What's the next move, not the final outcome? That grounding brings clarity because chaos feels overwhelming when you try to solve everything at once. But when you break it down moment by moment, decision by decision, it becomes manageable. That's control. Then come your emotions. Chaos will try to provoke you. It will push frustration, fear, anger, sometimes all at once. And if you let those emotions lead, you'll act in ways that make the situation worse. You'll say things you don't mean. You'll make decisions you regret. You'll burn energy fighting things you can't change. Mastery doesn't mean you don't feel those emotions. It means you don't let them take the wheel. You acknowledge them without obeying them. You feel the pressure without collapsing under it. You stay steady even when everything around you isn't. That steadiness is rare, and that's why it's powerful. Because in chaos, most people are looking for something stable. When you become that stability, you stand out. Not by being loud, but by being controlled. Not by forcing order, but by moving with precision. Embracing chaos also means letting go of perfection. Because chaos doesn't allow perfect conditions. There's always missing information. There's always uncertainty. There's always risk. So instead of waiting for everything to align, you act with what you have. You adapt as you go. You make decisions knowing they might not be perfect, but they're necessary. That flexibility keeps you moving. While others freeze, waiting for clarity, you create clarity through action. And clears throat. Every step you take gives you more information, more feedback, more direction. That's how you turn chaos into progress. But there's another layer to this. Chaos strips away illusions. It shows you who people really are. It shows you what truly matters. It shows you what you're actually capable of. Comfort can hide those truths. Chaos reveals them. And when you stop fearing that, you start valuing it. Because now every chaotic moment becomes an opportunity to sharpen yourself, to refine your thinking, to strengthen your discipline, to deepen your self-control. You don't ask, why is this happening? You ask, how can I use this? That mindset transforms everything, because now chaos isn't your enemy, it's your training ground. A place where you develop the ability to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly in uncertainty, to act decisively when others hesitate. And over time, something shifts inside you. You stop needing everything to be perfect before you feel confident. You stop depending on stability to feel in control. You realize that control was never about the situation. It was always about you, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. That's what you master. And once you do, chaos loses its intimidation. It's still unpredictable. It's still intense. But it no longer shakes you the way it used to, because now, no matter what happens outside, there's something inside you that stays grounded, focused, calm, ready. And that's what separates those who break from those who rise. Not the absence of chaos, but the ability to walk through it without losing yourself. At some point, you realize something unsettling. It was never just about situations. It was never just about people. It was a game of reactions, a game of control, a game where emotions are pulled like strings and most don't even notice they're being played. Approval becomes a reward. Rejection becomes a punishment. Attention becomes currency. Silence becomes a weapon. And without awareness, you get pulled into it. You try to win by proving yourself. You try to win by being liked. You try to win by avoiding conflict or chasing validation. But no matter how much you play, you never really feel in control, because the rules weren't designed for you to win. They were designed to keep you reacting. That's the trap. The more you try to win the game on its terms, the deeper you fall into it. So rising beyond the game doesn't mean playing better. It means understanding the structure so clearly that you stop needing to play at all. That's a different level, because now you're not chasing approval. You're defining your own standards. You're not avoiding rejection. You're no longer controlled by it. You're not reacting to every move. You're choosing when and if. Clears throat, you respond. That shift is quiet but powerful. At first it feels strange. You notice situations where you used to react instantly and now you pause. You notice moments where you would have defended yourself and now you let silence do the work. You notice people trying to provoke you and it no longer lands the same way. It's not that you don't see it, it's that you're no longer pulled by it. That's what it means to rise beyond. You're still aware of the game, but clears throat. You're not emotionally invested in its outcomes. And that's what makes you dangerous in a way most don't understand. Because the game depends on predictable reactions. Say something offensive, they expect anger. Withhold attention, they expect insecurity. Apply pressure, they expect panic. But when you don't react the way they expect, the pattern breaks. And when the pattern breaks, control disappears. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become intentional. You don't respond out of habit, you respond out of choice. If something deserves your attention, you give it fully. If it doesn't, you let it pass without draining your energy. That level of control changes how you move through everything. Conversations become clearer because you're not trying to win them. Decisions become sharper because they're not driven by fear or approval. Relationships become more real because they're not built on performance. You start valuing something different. Not being liked, but being aligned. Not being understood by everyone, but being honest with yourself. Not controlling others, but mastering your own responses. That's where freedom begins. Because the moment you stop needing the game, you stop being affected by its outcomes. If someone praises you, you appreciate it, but it doesn't define you. If someone criticizes you, you consider it, but it doesn't break you. If someone walks away, you let them without chasing or collapsing. That stability is rare, and it comes from one thing. You've shifted your focus inward. Instead of trying to control how others see you, you focus on how you see yourself. Instead of trying to manage every outcome, you focus on how you show up. Instead of trying to predict every move, you stay grounded in your own direction. That internal focus makes you consistent, and consistency creates confidence. Not the loud kind, not the kind that needs to prove itself, but the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't shake under pressure. The kind that doesn't need constant reassurance. The kind that stands firm even when everything around it shifts. And here's the part most people don't realize. When you rise beyond the game, you actually start seeing it more clearly than ever. You notice the patterns in conversations. You see the subtle ways people try to gain control. You understand the dynamics that once confused you. But instead of being caught in it, you observe it. You engage when it's necessary and disengage when it's not. That balance keeps your energy intact because energy is the real currency here. Every reaction costs you something. Every emotional spike drains you. Every unnecessary conflict pulls you away from your focus, so you become selective. Not everything deserves your time. Not everything deserves your response. Not everything deserves your energy. And that selectiveness is power, because now you're not scattered, you're directed, you move with purpose. And when you do choose to act, it carries weight, because it's not coming from impulse, it's coming from clarity. Rising beyond the game also changes how you handle setbacks. Before, a loss felt personal. It felt like failure, like proof that you weren't enough. But now you see it differently. It's just an event, something that happened, not something that defines you. You extract what matters and you move on. No drama, no overreaction, no identity attached to it. That ability to move forward without being emotionally stuck, that's what keeps you ahead. Because while others are replaying the moment, you're already adapting, already progressing. And over time, the gap becomes obvious. Not because you're trying to be better than anyone, but because you're no longer wasting energy on things that don't move you forward. That's what rising beyond really is. It's not about dominance. It's not about control over others. It's about independence from the things that used to control you. The need for validation, the fear of rejection, the impulse to react, the habit of overthinking every move. You outgrow it. Not by force, but by understanding. And once you understand something deeply enough, it loses its hold on you. So the game can continue around you, people can still play it. Situations can still unfold the same way. But you're no longer part of it in the same way. You're operating on a different level, one where your actions come from intention, not reaction. One where your value is self-defined, not externally assigned. One where your peace is internal, not dependent on outcomes. And in that space, you don't just survive the game, you transcend it. Quietly, completely, irreversibly. They laughed at your silence until your presence started shaking every room you walked into. They thought you were just another face in the crowd, another shadow passing through their little world. But deep down, something felt different about you from the very beginning. You carried pressure without breaking. You stayed calm while chaos swallowed everybody else. And now reality just smacked them in the face. Every doubt they had about you turned into fear, respect, and confusion. Because the truth is brutal. You were never ordinary. You've been that one from day one. And now they finally see what was standing in front of them. All along they looked at you and made their decision too fast. Before you even had the chance to speak, they already placed limits on your future inside their minds. They judged your silence as weakness, your patience as fear, and your calm energy as something ordinary. That's how people operate when they only understand loud confidence and fake power. They never realize that the most dangerous person in the room is usually the one who doesn't need attention to feel important. While everybody else was busy proving themselves, you were busy building yourself plans. From the very beginning, people underestimated your ability because they couldn't read you. You didn't move like everybody else. You didn't beg for validation. You didn't chase approval from crowds that change opinions every 5 minutes. That confused them. And whenever people feel confused by someone they can't control, they automatically assume that person is less important than they actually are. That's why they laughed too early. That's why they ignored your potential. They thought your quiet nature meant you had no fire inside you. Meanwhile, the entire time you were carrying storms in your mind that would break weaker people instantly. The funny thing is, people only respect results after they appear. Nobody respects the process. Nobody respects the lonely nights, the pressure, the overthinking, the discipline, or the moments you almost gave up but kept moving anyway. They only notice the glow after the darkness is gone. That's why they never saw your evolution happening in real time. Every setback was secretly sharpening you. Every betrayal taught you how people truly operate. Every moment they doubted you forced you to become mentally stronger. They accidentally created the version of you they fear today. You stayed quiet while they talked too much. You stayed focused while they chased distractions. You kept learning while they kept laughing. And slowly, without announcing it, you started becoming impossible to ignore. Your energy changed. Your mindset changed. The way people reacted to your presence started changing too. Suddenly, the same people who once overlooked you began watching your every move. Not because you asked them to, because real power naturally demands attention. The truth that smacked them in the face was simple. You were never weak. You were just patient. There's a massive difference between the two. Weak people break under pressure. Patient people absorb pressure until the perfect moment arrives. And when your moment finally came, it exposed everybody who misjudged you from the start. They expected you to stay average forever. They expected life to crush your confidence. Instead, every hardship turned into fuel. Now they replay old memories in their heads, trying to understand how they missed the signs. But the signs were always there. Your resilience was there. Your intelligence was there. Your intelligence was there. Your hunger was there. They just couldn't recognize greatness before it became obvious. Most people can only believe in something after the world confirms it for them. That's why visionaries, leaders, and powerful minds are almost always underestimated in the beginning. And maybe that was necessary because being underestimated gave you freedom. Freedom to grow without distractions. Freedom to sharpen your mind without fake applause. Freedom to become dangerous without anyone preparing for what you would eventually become. There is something terrifying about a person who no longer feels the need to explain themselves. That kind of silence makes people uncomfortable because they can't predict it, control it, or manipulate it. While everybody else was wasting energy arguing, defending themselves, and trying to win attention, you mastered the art of staying quiet and watching everything. And without realizing it, your silence became more powerful than the noise surrounding you. Gleaned. People thought your silence meant you had nothing to say. They assumed you were weak because you didn't react instantly. In a world addicted to over-explaining and emotional outbursts, calmness looks strange. But what they fail to understand is that silence is not emptiness. Sometimes silence is observation. Sometimes it is discipline. Sometimes it is restraint. And sometimes it is a warning sign that a person has learned more than they reveal. Ben, you started noticing something important about people. The louder they talked, the more they exposed themselves. They revealed their insecurities, their jealousy, their fake confidence, and their desperation for validation. Meanwhile, the less you spoke, the more powerful your presence became. Silence forced people to think about you. It created mystery around your int. They never knew what you were planning, what you were feeling, or how much you truly understood. As started driving them insane, Ben, while others kept showing every card in their hand, you learned to keep yours hidden. That changed the entire game. People can attack predictable behavior, but they struggle against someone they cannot fully read. Your silence protected your energy. It protected your goals. It protected your peace. And most importantly, it protected your focus from people who secretly wanted to distract you from becoming stronger. Pans. There were moments when you wanted to respond. Moments when disrespect burned inside your chest. Moments when you wanted to prove yourself to people who doubted you. But eventually you realized something brutal. Not every battle deserves your voice. Some people only provoke reactions because they feed off emotional chaos. The second you stop giving them access to your emotions, their power disappears completely. That's when silence stops being passive and starts becoming strategic. Your silence also forced you to grow mentally. Instead of constantly talking about your dreams, you started working on them quietly. Instead of announcing every move, you started building in private. And while people underestimated your calmness, you were transforming yourself behind the scenes. Day by day, your discipline became sharper. Your awareness became stronger. Your emotional control became deadly. The same silence they mocked started shaping you into someone far more dangerous than they expected. Then something unexpected happened. People started paying attention to your silence more than their own voices. They noticed how calm you stayed under pressure. They noticed how little affected you emotionally. They noticed that while everyone else was losing control, you remained composed. That level of control intimidates people because it reflects inner strength most of them do not have. Lenge now, your silence carries weight. When you speak, people listen carefully because they know you don't waste words. When you walk into a room, your energy says more than long speeches ever could. And the truth is, silence became your greatest weapon because it forced people to underestimate you. Duck while you quietly became stronger than all the noise around you. Most people look powerful when life is easy. They smile when everything works in their favor, speak confidently when they feel safe, and act strong when nothing is testing them. But pressure changes everything. Pressure strips away fake confidence and exposes what truly exists underneath a person's surface. And when life started applying pressure to you, something unexpected happened. Instead of collapsing, you transformed. Banes at first. The weight felt unbearable. Disappointments pursue disappointments. The rations or the stress, the disappointments, the betrayals, and the silent battles in your mind felt like too much for one person to carry. There were nights when your thoughts became louder than the world around you. Nights where nobody understood what you were fighting internally. Everybody saw your face, but nobody saw the pressure sitting behind your eyes. And maybe that's what changed you the most. Learning how to survive battles nobody even knew existed. Pressure has a strange way of revealing character. Weak people panic the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Snorts. They search for shortcuts, excuses, or somebody else to blame. But you slowly became different. Every painful situation forced another layer of strength out of you. Every setback sharpened your mindset. Every betrayal taught you how to read people more carefully. The very things designed to break your spirit ended up building a stronger version of you. Instead, the pressure forced you to adapt. You became mentally sharper because you had no choice. You learned how to stay calm in situations that would destroy other people emotionally. While everybody else reacted with panic, anger, or desperation, you learned how to think clearly under stress. That alone separated you from most people. Because true power is not about controlling perfect situations. True power is staying composed when everything around you feels unstable. There was a moment when you realized something important. The pressure was not your enemy. It was your training ground. Every difficult experience was shaping your endurance, your discipline, and your emotional control. Life kept increasing the weight because you kept surviving what should have crushed you. And the more pressure you handled, the more dangerous your mindset became. You stopped fearing hard moments because hard moments had already transformed you before. People who underestimated you could not understand this transformation. They only saw the calm version of you standing in front of them now. They did not see the sleepless nights, the overthinking, the disappointment, or the emotional battles you survived alone. They didn't witness the internal wars that forced you to become stronger. That's why your presence feels different now. There is hidden pain behind your confidence. There is experience behind your silence. There is survival behind your composure. Band pressure also taught you who people truly are. Some disappeared the second things became difficult. Some secretly enjoyed watching you struggle. Others doubted whether you would survive at all. But pressure revealed something even more important: your own resilience. It showed you that your limits were far beyond what anybody imagined, including yourself. Boom, now you carry yourself differently because you know what you survived. Small problems no longer shake you the way they used to. Drama no longer controls your emotions. Fear no longer controls your emotions. Fear no longer stops your movement. The pressure that was supposed to destroy your confidence ended up creating unshakable mental strength instead. And that is what terrified them in the end. Not just your success, not just your growth, but the realization that pressure didn't weaken you. It revealed your true power. At some point, people stopped seeing you as just another person in the room. Something shifted. The energy changed the moment you walked in. And even the people who pretended not to notice could feel it. You were no longer invisible, no longer easy to overlook. Your presence started carrying a weight that couldn't be ignored, and that terrified the same people who once underestimated you. Tummy ends. The strange thing about real presence is that it doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't beg for attention or force respect. It naturally changes the atmosphere without saying much at all. It's exactly what happened with you. After everything you survived, every lesson you learned, and every battle you fought in silence, your energy became different, sharper, colder, stronger. People could sense that you were no longer the same version they once doubted. Oh, you stopped chasing approval from people who never truly valued you. You stopped shrinking yourself just to make insecure people comfortable. And the second you became fully comfortable with your own power, everything around you started shifting. The same rooms that once ignored your voice suddenly became quiet when you spoke. The same people who laughed too early started watching you more carefully, not because you demanded respect, but because your growth forced them to recognize it. Your presence changed the game because it exposed how fake many people really were. Some only respected confidence when it looked loud and flashy. But your confidence became calm, controlled, and dangerous. You didn't need to dominate conversations to control attention anymore. Your silence alone created pressure. People started overthinking your reactions, studying your expressions, and wondering what was happening inside your mind. That level of psychological control is something most people never achieve. Means what made your presence even more powerful was the fact that it came from experience, not performance. Anybody can fake confidence for a few moments. Anybody can act strong when life feels easy. But your energy came from surviving situations that would mentally destroy weaker people. Every scar, every disappointment, every lonely moment shaped the aura you carry now. That's why people feel something heavy around you even when you barely speak. Mom, the people who once doubted you became uncomfortable because your growth reminded them of their own limitations. They expected you to remain stuck in the same position forever. They expected fear to stop you. They expected pressure to break your spirit. Instead, you evolved quietly while they stayed distracted. And now every achievement, every improvement, and every moment of confidence feels like proof that they completely misjudged you from the start. You also learned something powerful along the way. Presence is not about being feared by everyone. It's about being impossible to ignore. Real presence comes from self-control, emotional discipline, and complete belief in yourself. The moment you stopped needing external validation, your energy became authentic, and authentic energy always changes the environment around it. Now when you enter a room, people feel it immediately. Some admire it, some envy it. Some become nervous around it because they can sense the mental strength behind your calm expression. But whether they admit it or not, they know one thing for certain. Your presence changed the entire game. Aminius, you are no longer playing by the expectations people created for you. You became something they failed to prepare for. And that realization hit them harder than any words ever could. For the longest time, people only saw the version of you they wanted to believe in. They saw your silence and called you weak. They saw your patience and called you passive. They saw your kindness and assumed you had no edge, no darkness, no power hidden underneath your calm exterior. They built an entire image of you inside their minds without ever truly understanding who you were. And the worst part is they became so confident in their assumptions that they never imagined they could be completely wrong. Polinia. But truth has a dangerous habit of revealing itself over time. Lands you didn't expose yourself through loud speeches or desperate attempts to prove your worth. You revealed yourself through endurance, through growth, through the way you survived situations that were supposed to destroy you mentally. While people were busy underestimating you, Life was quietly shaping you into something stronger, sharper, and far more dangerous than they expected. Every betrayal hardened your awareness. Every lonely night strengthened your discipline. Every moment of pressure forced another hidden layer of power to rise to the surface. At first, nobody noticed the transformation happening inside you. Real change is silent in the beginning. It happens behind closed doors, inside painful thoughts, during moments where nobody claps for your progress. While people chase distractions and temporary validation, you were rebuilding your mind piece by piece. You learned how to control your emotions instead of letting emotions control you. You learned how to stay calm while chaos surrounded you. Most important, you learned how to stop seeking approval from people who never truly understood your value in the first place. That changed everything. The version of you standing in front of them now feels completely different because it is different. Your eyes carry experience. Now your silence carries meaning now. Your energy carries weight now. People can feel that you've survived things they know nothing about. And even if they cannot fully explain it, they sense the shift immediately. The same person they once ignored now walks with quiet confidence that cannot be shaken easily. Realization hit them hard, lame, because now they are forced to confront the truth they avoided for so long. You were never ordinary. You were simply evolving in silence while they underestimated you loudly. The strength they see today didn't appear overnight. It was built through pressure, pain, self-control, and survival. While they spent time judging you, you spent time mastering yourself. And there is nothing more intimidating than a person who has learned how to control their own mind under pressure. Some people now admire you quietly because they finally understand your resilience. Others feel uncomfortable around you because your growth exposes their own lack of discipline. And some secretly regret the way they treated you when they thought you had no power. But the most satisfying part is that you no longer need any of them to validate your transformation. Their recognition became irrelevant the moment you stopped doubting yourself. You also started understanding people more clearly. You learned that many individuals only respect visible success. They cannot recognize potential while it is still developing. They only believe in strength after the world confirms it for them. That's why visionaries, leaders, and mentally powerful people are almost always misunderstood in the beginning. Most people judge based on appearances, not depth. They react to what they see on the surface instead of paying attention to what quietly exists underneath. But eventually hidden strength becomes impossible to hide forever. Now your presence speaks before your words do. The calmness in your expression makes people wonder what battles you survived. The discipline in your mindset separates you from the emotional chaos surrounding everyone else. Even your silence feels different because it no longer comes from uncertainty. It comes from control. And maybe the biggest shock for them is realizing how wrong they truly were about you from the start. They expected you to break under pressure. They expected life to crush your confidence. They expected your kindness to make you weak forever. Instead, every difficult experience sharpened you. Every betrayal increased your awareness. Every setback added another layer to your mental strength. Now they finally see who you really are. Not the quiet person they underestimated. Not the harmless version they imagined in their minds, but someone forged through pressure, patience, discipline, and survival. Someone who stayed calm while being tested repeatedly by life. Someone who no longer fears opinions, rejection, or temporary failures because they already survived worse internally. And the truth is brutal for them to accept. The person they overlooked from day one became the very person they can no longer ignore.